On a hot day in 216 BC, the Roman Republic did something it would regret for generations. It marched one of the largest armies it had ever assembled straight into Hannibal's trap. By sunset, the battlefield was covered in Roman dead. The Republic's elite had been shattered, and Hannibal Barca had achieved one of the greatest tactical victories in military history. This was Cannae, a battle so devastating that military commanders still study it more than 2,000 years later. But Cannae was not won in a single day. It was the climax of years of planning, daring, and relentless campaigning. To understand how Hannibal destroyed Rome at Cannae, we must first understand the man himself. Born into one of Carthage's most powerful families, Hannibal grew up in the shadow of Rome's growing power. After Carthage's defeat in the First Punic War, many believed Rome had become unstoppable. Hannibal disagreed. As a young man, he inherited command of Carthaginian forces in Spain. There, he built an army hardened by constant warfare. But Hannibal was not interested in defending Spain. He had a far more ambitious goal. He intended to bring the war directly to Rome, not by sea, not through diplomacy, but by leading an army across some of the most dangerous terrain in the ancient world, the Alps, a route that many believed was impossible for a large army to cross. Yet Hannibal was about to prove them wrong. Bellumarc, commanders, strategy, battles. This is the story of Hannibal's greatest victory, and one of the most famous battles ever fought. But Cannae did not happen in isolation. It was the climax of years of war between Rome and Carthage. Years in which Hannibal crossed mountains, shattered Roman armies, and forced the strongest power in the Western Mediterranean to fight for its life. To understand Cannae, we need to follow the campaign that led there, and that begins far from Italy, in the struggle for control of Spain. Hannibal was born into war. His family, the Barcids, built Carthaginian power in Spain after Rome defeated Carthage in the First Punic War. Hannibal grew up with one idea burned into his mind. Rome had to be challenged, and one day, it had to be beaten. When war broke out again, Hannibal did not wait for Rome to strike first. He moved fast, seized the initiative, and attacked the Roman sphere of influence in Spain. His boldest move was still ahead of him. Hannibal was not just planning to win battles, he was planning to drag the war onto Roman soil. Then came the march that made Hannibal a legend. To reach Italy, he led his army across the Alps. It was a journey through cold, hunger, steep passes, and hostile tribes. Soldiers, horses, and elephants all had to survive terrain built to stop armies. This was not a heroic stroll into Italy. It was a brutal test of endurance. Many men died, many animals were lost, but Hannibal kept going, and when he emerged on the other side, he had done something Rome thought impossible. He had brought an enemy army into the north of Italy. Rome was suddenly fighting at home, and Hannibal was only getting started. Rome's first real answer came at the Trebia River in 218 BC. It was a disaster. Hannibal baited the Romans into battle in terrible conditions. The river was cold, the army was unprepared, and Hannibal had already arranged his forces to exploit every Roman mistake. The Romans attacked with confidence. Hannibal answered with patience, timing, and a hidden force waiting to strike. By the end of the battle, the Romans had been beaten badly, and Hannibal had proved something important. He could outthink Rome in the field, but Trebia was only the beginning. A worse trap was waiting. The next year, Hannibal struck again at Lake Trasimene. This time, he used the landscape itself as a weapon. Fog, hills, and narrow roads became part of the battle plan. A Roman army marched into a valley beside the lake, unaware that Hannibal's men were waiting above them. Then the attack came, from the hills, from the front, from the sides, and from nowhere all at once. It was not a battle in the normal sense. It was an ambush designed to make escape impossible. Rome had now been shocked twice, but instead of backing down, the Republic did what great powers often do after a disaster. It doubled down. Rome responded the only way it knew how, with more men. The Senate raised larger armies and demanded a decisive victory. Roman leaders believed that if they could just bring Hannibal to a major battle, numbers would finally win the day. But that assumption played directly into Hannibal's hands. Hannibal did not need Rome to be reckless forever. He only needed them to be reckless once. And in 216 BC, at a place called Cannae, they gave him the opportunity he was waiting for. Cannae was not chosen by accident. It was a battlefield in southern Italy near the Aufidus River, open enough for large armies to deploy, yet shaped by terrain and wind in ways that mattered. The Romans came with confidence and numbers. Hannibal came with a plan. The Roman commanders believed the battle would end the war. Hannibal believed it would end Roman confidence. Both sides knew this was the moment that mattered. They just did not know what the day would cost. The Romans deployed in a massive block of infantry, deep and aggressive, designed to smash Hannibal straight through the center. Their cavalry sat on the wings. Hannibal arranged his army differently. He placed his strongest troops where he needed them most, and shaped the line in a way that looked dangerous, but not quite stable. At first glance, it may have looked like Hannibal was weaker in the center. That was not a mistake. It was the whole plan. The Romans saw a line they thought they could break. What they were really looking at was a trap waiting to close. When the battle began, the Romans attacked hard and fast. They pushed into the Carthaginian center, and at first, it worked. The middle of Hannibal's line began to give ground, but Hannibal had no intention of holding the center forever. He wanted the Romans to follow it. He wanted them to think they were winning, so they pushed deeper, and with every step forward, the Romans were moving into a battlefield that was no longer wide and open. It was closing around them. Now the trap snapped shut. Hannibal's cavalry had already gained the upper hand on the wings. Once that happened, the Roman flanks were exposed. The Carthaginian center, instead of breaking, kept folding back in good order. The Romans had been drawn forward into a shape that worked against them. They were crowded, compressed, and unable to use their numbers properly. What looked like a breakthrough was actually a funnel, and Hannibal was pulling Rome straight into it. This is the maneuver that made Cannae famous, the double envelopment. In simple terms, Hannibal let the Romans push into the center while his wings held and then curved inward. At the same time, his cavalry came around from behind. The Romans were surrounded from front, sides, and rear. There was no clean way out, no room to fight properly, no room to regroup. The larger Roman army had become a prison built by its own momentum. Once the ring closed, the battle turned into a slaughter. The Romans could not maneuver, they could not break out, they could only endure. Ancient sources disagree on the exact numbers, but they agree on the result. The losses were catastrophic. Rome had suffered one of the worst defeats in its history. Among the dead were experienced officers, senators, and thousands of soldiers who had marched out believing victory was certain. Hannibal had not merely defeated the Roman army, he had shattered Roman pride. For a moment, Rome looked vulnerable enough to collapse. Allies wavered, fear spread, and the city itself was in shock. Yet Rome did not surrender. That is what makes Cannae so important. Hannibal had won the battle, but he had not finished the war. Rome would change its strategy, avoid the kind of battle Hannibal wanted, and slowly fight its way back. Cannae was a victory so complete that it changed the enemy who survived it. More than 2,000 years later, military historians still study this battle, not because Hannibal was lucky, but because he understood how to turn a battlefield into a machine built from timing, discipline, terrain, deception, and human psychology. Can prove that numbers alone do not win wars. Strategy wins wars. If you enjoy military history, strategy, and legendary battles, subscribe to Bellumarc. New documentaries are on the way, and the next chapter of Hannibal's war is coming soon. Hannibal won at Cannae, but Rome would live long enough to answer back. In our next documentary, we'll explore the Battle of Zama, the battle where Rome finally met Hannibal on its own terms. This is Bellumarc. Commanders, strategy, battles.